Everything you are today, your fears, that sudden skill that emerged, even the love that arrived unexpectedly isn't a coincidence. Every detail of your life is part of a much older story than you. I'm not talking about fate. I'm talking about reincarnation. Your soul may carry secrets from other lifetimes, and today we're going to explore 9 signs that prove this is true. Whether you're skeptical or already believe, even your doubts might be memories trying to come back. Reincarnation is an ancient concept, older than the great civilizations we study in school. In simple terms, it suggests that our journey doesn't begin when we're born, nor does it end when we pass. Life is a continuous sequence of experiences, learning, and transformations. Think about those people who seem to possess deep wisdom from a young age, while others struggle to grasp the simplest lessons in life. Or consider the children who show incredible talents without ever having studied. These questions make many of us realize that existence is not as simple as it appears. But if that's the case, why don't we remember our past lives? Many spiritual traditions explain that the veil of forgetfulness is necessary. It allows us to begin anew without carrying the emotional weight of past experiences. Imagine carrying all the pain, loss, and trauma from previous existences. It would be unbearable for most. Yet, some clues still break through. I've experienced this myself. Once, while traveling to a country I'd never visited before, I felt like I was returning home. The streets, the air, the sounds of the language, everything felt familiar. There was no logical explanation. And at that moment, I understood. Maybe there's much more about me than I realize. The country was England, specifically London. Is anyone here from there? Just like the captivating opening lines of a book, the idea of reincarnation has the power to grab both the mind and heart. This belief is deeply rooted in humanity's oldest and most revered traditions. By exploring who you've been, you can better understand who you are today. Your likes, your inclinations, even those unexplained characteristics of yours, begin to make sense. It's like piecing together parts of a puzzle that until now seemed incomplete. And now, let's dive into the practical part. How do you know if you've lived other lives? How do you recognize the signs your spirit is trying to show you? There are clear and powerful signs that many people report throughout their lives. We're not talking about mere coincidences or fleeting impressions. These are deep marks that leave visible traces for those who decide to pay attention. Situations that once seemed strange or meaningless start to fit into a bigger picture of who you really are. As you learn about each sign, ask yourself, how many of these signs have appeared in my own life? Imagine this. You're in a completely unfamiliar place, no memories, no reason to feel connected, but suddenly time seems to turn backward. The air smells familiar, the sounds are oddly recognizable, and the way the light hits, it feels like you've been here before. That's déjà vu. But it's not just a trick of the mind. Science has long tried to explain déjà vu as a brief glitch in the brain's processing system. But those who've experienced it deeply know that this isn't mere confusion. It's something far more profound, something that touches the soul. Many scholars and spiritual traditions describe déjà vu as a breach between the present moment and the past. In that fleeting instant, a memory from a past life rises to the surface, breaking through the veil of forgetfulness that typically separates us from who we once were. Think about it. Why would your heart race in front of a street you've never seen before? Why would you feel like you've already been part of a conversation that's supposedly happening for the first time? These moments aren't coincidences. They are flashes of memory, faint but unmistakable traces from past lives. The more frequent and intense the déjà vu, the stronger the indication it may have roots in past lives. Those who experience these intense moments often describe them as vivid and emotional, It's not just a fleeting sensation of "this feels familiar." It's the overwhelming feeling that everything, absolutely everything, has happened exactly this way before. Let me share a true story. I once met someone who was deeply rational, skeptical about spirituality, and completely uninterested in concepts like reincarnation. Until one day, everything changed. They traveled to a small, ancient village in a country they had never visited. The village was full of narrow alleys and buildings that seemed suspended in time. As soon as they arrived, something shifted. They were overwhelmed by an unfamiliar yet deeply familiar feeling. Even though they had never been there, they knew exactly where each street led. It was as if their body knew the path, like they were returning to a place left behind centuries ago. They turned a corner and stopped in front of a small square. Tears welled up in their eyes without any clear reason. It wasn't sadness, nor joy. It was pure longing. Later, as they spoke with locals, they discovered that this square had once been a marketplace centuries ago, used for public gatherings. The strangest part, they described in detail an old fountain that had once stood in the center of the square, a fountain no longer there, but recorded in the city's historical archives. At that moment, everything clicked for them. The déjà vu wasn't just a mistake of the brain, it was a soul memory, a piece of who they were escaping from deep within, saying, "We've been here before." So, next time you feel like you've already seen, experienced, or lived through something new, don't dismiss it. It could be your soul trying to remind you of who you really are and everything you've already lived. Some people enter your life slowly, requiring time to form a bond. But then there are those who seem to have always been there from the start. The connection happens instantly, deep, unexplainable. Just one glance, one gesture, and it feels like you've known them forever, as if they've been a part of your story long before this moment. This is the reunion of souls, one of the strongest signs that you've lived past lives. These instant connections are common among those who have journeyed through many lifetimes. People and places leave imprints on our essence. When we encounter them again, even in entirely different contexts, the recognition is immediate. I've seen this firsthand. Two people who had just met, yet felt as though they were old friends. The laughter, the looks, the way they understood each other without long explanations. It all came so naturally that it was impossible not to notice. They even remarked that it seemed as though they had known each other for years, finishing each other's sentences, predicting reactions, recalling similar situations they'd lived through. Every detail reinforced this immediate harmony. This type of connection goes beyond mere friendliness or chemistry. When we've lived many lifetimes, we create deep bonds with other souls, friends, lovers, companions on the journey. When we reunite, time no longer matters. It could be one lifetime, 2, or 10, but the essence still recognizes itself. You feel it in the ease of understanding, in the comfort that person brings, in the silence that's never awkward. The same thing happens with places. There are locations that embrace you the moment you arrive. The first time you step there, everything feels right, as though your feet know exactly where to step, and your heart beats in rhythm with the environment. It's not about charm or beauty, it's deeper. It's a reunion. Some people call it fate. Others call it coincidence. But when these connections happen so intensely and naturally, the meaning is clear. You've been with these souls or in these places before. Life isn't just about beginnings, it's about continuities. Stories that cross time and occasionally intersect again, to teach, to heal, or simply to continue. Some people seem to carry something extraordinary with them. From a young age, they display remarkable abilities without much study or practice. It comes naturally, as if they're carrying something perfected from elsewhere. Anyone who's seen a child pick up an instrument and play as if they've been doing it for years knows exactly what I mean. Or that effortless ability to learn languages, lead others, or understand complex subjects, as if those things have always been a part of them. It's not luck or innate talent. It's accumulated experience. When we pass through many lifetimes, we bring fragments of what we've learned. That's why, sometimes, you start something new and yet feel like it's always been inside you. And that's exactly it. What we often call innate talents are, in fact, deep memories of skills we've developed in past lives. This isn't just limited to arts or technical abilities. Sometimes, it's wisdom about life itself. It's that child who offers advice you'd expect from someone with decades of experience. These are clear signs. Wisdom that arrives without warning. Talents that emerge without explanation. So, if something inside you feels too natural, pay attention. It might not be new. It might simply be your soul expressing what it's known how to do for a very long time. Some memories appear out of nowhere. They don't seem to belong to your current life, but they carry an unusual intensity. Sometimes, it's vivid dreams so powerful that they leave an impression long after waking up, as if they truly happened. You find yourself in places you've never been, wearing clothes from a distant era, facing situations that don't align with your present life. Everything feels strangely familiar. This is more common than you might think. When the mind relaxes, as it does during sleep, memories from past lives can resurface. They come in flashes, complete stories or sensations that transcend logic. A follower once shared a recurring dream in which she lived in an ancient village, always playing the same role. At first, she thought it was just imagination, but the details were so vivid that it left her puzzled. When she searched for historical images from that period, she was shocked to find places and symbols that matched her dream exactly, even though she'd never studied that time. This wasn't just a creative dream, it was a soul memory trying to surface. These images don't just appear in dreams. They can also emerge during deep relaxation or in the midst of everyday conversations. Suddenly, a scene becomes clear. You don't know where it came from, but you know it's not just your imagination. It's your soul manifesting, memories breaking free from the unconscious when you're ready to receive them. Some fears arise with no clear cause. They weren't learned. They don't stem from trauma in this lifetime, yet they are there. Sometimes from childhood, defying all logical explanations. Fear of water despite never having drowned. Fear of heights despite never falling. Claustrophobia without ever being confined. These are automatic reactions that can't be explained just by what's happened in this life. The answer may lie in past life experiences. When something is traumatic enough, it leaves deep imprints that transcend time, manifesting as blocks, fears, or phobias. The body reacts before the mind even understands. It's the soul protecting itself from reliving old pain. These signs point to unresolved issues that need to be confronted. Ignoring them only prolongs the cycle. When we recognize that these fears may come from past lives, we create space to understand and, more importantly, overcome them. Fear loses its power when illuminated by awareness. It stops being an inexplicable obstacle and becomes an opportunity for healing and liberation. Some people feel inexplicably drawn to specific historical periods or cultures. It's not just a fleeting curiosity, it's a deep, almost instinctive obsession, stirring powerful emotions like a longing for a time they've never lived. This connection to a particular era or culture is one of the clearest signs of past life experience. The soul recognizes what it has already been through. Even if the mind doesn't remember, something within ignites. Language, clothing, rituals, architecture, symbols, everything evokes a sense of belonging that can't be explained just by external influences. Sometimes, this obsession manifests through works of fiction, old films, or stories set in medieval worlds like The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. You feel as if you're part of that universe, as if you've walked through places similar to them before. There's an undeniable feeling that ties you to the past, even if your logical mind dismisses it. This fascination is more than just an interest. It's a deep soul connection to times and places that once were your home. If you find yourself inexplicably drawn to a certain culture, era, or even a particular historical figure, it could be a whisper from your soul, reminding you of what has been lived. Some people carry the weight of many experiences, even when they are still young. From a young age, they show maturity in their words, how they face challenges, and a deep gaze that seems to see beyond the surface. While many people get lost in distractions and shallow concerns, these individuals observe, reflect, and often prefer silence over meaningless conversation. The feeling of being different, thinking more deeply, and not fully aligning with the usual concerns around you is a clear sign that the soul has traveled many long paths. The term old soul isn't just a figure of speech. It represents someone who has lived through many experiences, accumulated countless lessons, and now carries invisible baggage. They are not easily swept away by trends, not impressed by shallow things, and prefer to connect with what is real and essential. This sense of being an old soul is often accompanied by an understanding of life's cyclical nature, the ups and downs, the meetings and goodbyes. It's as if they intuitively know that life is not just about the present, but about learning and evolving across multiple lifetimes. These individuals often feel that their wisdom goes beyond their years, and they can provide insights that others, with all their youthful experience, may never fully grasp. So, if you've ever felt like you're not quite fitting into the typical life narrative, or that you possess a deeper wisdom beyond your years, it may be a sign that your soul has seen much more than this one life has to offer. Some situations seem to repeat at different stages of life, like chapters from the same story. New characters, but the same lessons. Relationships follow the same patterns. Emotional challenges return in different forms, and mistakes repeat, despite your best efforts to act differently. This isn't bad luck or coincidence. These are soul lessons that still need to be understood. When an experience hasn't been fully integrated, it repeats itself. Sometimes, these patterns stem from past lives, unfinished stories, unresolved emotions, promises left unfulfilled. The soul attracts circumstances that allow it to finish what was left undone. Recognizing this shifts everything. You stop living on autopilot and begin to see meaning in the repetitions. Pain starts to have context, and life becomes a persistence of the soul's desire to grow. Every repeated situation serves as a mirror, reflecting the lessons that have yet to be learned. These cycles may feel frustrating at times, but they are opportunities. They guide you toward resolution, offering you the chance to heal, learn, and move forward. When you understand the significance of these recurring lessons, the entire pattern changes. Instead of repeating them endlessly, you begin to transcend them. Despite all that's been experienced in this life, some people still carry a sense of restlessness, as if something is always missing. No matter how much they achieve or how many experiences they accumulate, this feeling persists. It's as if their soul knows that something greater is waiting to be discovered. This constant search is a direct reflection of spiritual memory. Souls that have lived many lifetimes carry with them the echoes of what they've experienced and what they still wish to accomplish. They may not always consciously know it, but deep within, they understand that there is continuity. That's why nothing feels completely new or sufficient. There is a hunger for meaning, for answers that go beyond the material world. Someone carrying this feeling is often unsatisfied with superficial explanations or shallow routines. They seek meaning in everything, in relationships, in choices, in the very purpose of being here. This search for something greater is not dissatisfaction. It's the soul's desire for fulfillment. It is the recognition that there is more to discover, learn, and experience. When you feel this sense of yearning, it may be your soul urging you towards something deeper, something beyond what this life can offer. Some people possess an energy sensitivity that goes beyond the ordinary. They can easily sense the mood of a place, feel the energy of those around them, and absorb emotions with such intensity that it can sometimes become overwhelming. They feel drained in crowded places, are easily moved by emotions, and unknowingly absorb the joys or pains of others. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is a sign of an experienced soul. Souls that have lived through many lifetimes become more open and receptive. They have learned to connect deeply with what surrounds them. This manifests in a strong sense of empathy, sharp intuition, and a tendency for others to seek them out for advice and comfort. However, this sensitivity also presents a challenge. It requires maturity to avoid being swept away by external emotions. When understood, this sensitivity becomes a powerful tool for connection and healing. But when ignored or not properly managed, it can lead to emotional exhaustion. Sensitive individuals need to learn how to protect themselves, set healthy boundaries, and recognize when they're giving too much. Practices like meditation, mindful breathing, time spent in nature, and spiritual practices are essential for maintaining balance. Energy sensitivity is a bridge, not a prison. When well taken care of, it becomes a channel of healing for oneself and others. Looking at all these signs isn't about getting stuck in the past. It's about illuminating the present. Realizing that you've lived past lives isn't a fantasy. It's an awakening. When you understand this, everything changes. Patterns stop being prisons, pain takes on meaning, and encounters become reunions. The soul wants to evolve. It wants to remember. Which of these signs have you seen in your life? What story is your soul trying to tell? Share in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what another soul needs to recognize itself.